One, two, three.
Hello, friend. The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from our secret ice fortress and laboratory high in the Swiss Alps. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. Keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground as Sumo and Smokestack direct your attention to a higher dimension. Are you ready? Stand by.
Good. Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Hey.
Hey, do me a favor and pretend like I just played like the best song ever.
Oh, man. That was such a good song, you know.
Thanks.
It's really
I
what
may record one and
needed.
upload it later. My voice is not working right now.
Okay.
Not for singing, anyway. It can talk. But, a singing voice and a talking voice are two different states.
Very different.
And so one can be fit for one, but not fit for the other purpose at all the time. Is that...
You are
See?
excused. You're excused from singing duties.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't... Okay. If I feel like that we should talk about lots of stuff today, but first I have to just point out, why is everyone so boring? Have you noticed, like, people have gotten so... I think my whole problem in my life is that I have always found people in general to be so dull I can't stand to be around them. This is why I never worked out in a corporate setting.
Yeah.
Because people will be like, this allows... Like, when a lady stands up and describes her role in the company, or a man, this isn't a gender thing. It's anybody stands up and describes their role in a company, and they go like, I facilitate something liaison between yada yada.
Synergies.
And then you just think, like, when you're listening, I think if you're a living person, you think, wouldn't it be better if terrorists machine gunned us all down? Like, wouldn't that be preferable to whatever you're talking about?
Yeah.
Which is a problem for getting along in the world. Because
dude, it's so true. Like, the modern business environment is designed to make everybody, like, you have to be as boring as possible. I bet most of those people are interesting somewhere under there, but you'll never get to it.
Well, they start that way, but then they spend time in there and they die inside. And eventually all they can do, even outside of business, is just they perform logistic stories.
Mm-hmm.
They perform something Sam Hyde has called logistic stories, which is where they just... All of their discourse just revolves around telling you the logistics of the thing that they did. Like, I went to the restaurant last night. I took the I-7, and man, the traffic was bad. And I get there, and the price of the cheesecake has gone up like 50. I couldn't believe it. And I sit down, and we sit down near the air conditioning, and it's like they're just describing you there's no it's all semantics it's all syntax without semantics.
Mm-hmm.
There's no meaning or purpose to anything that they're saying. They're just talking and describing to you in detail the minutia of what occurred. And this is most people's excuse for conversation.
Yeah.
And it cannot be tolerated, at least by me. When I listen to it, I'm like, and stop. And that's enough. Like, but that's all that people have to talk about now. Because I think that's why people enjoy current things so much. Like whatever current thing is, Ukraine or...
yeah, it gives everybody something to talk about.
It gives people a license to be somewhat emotional about something, but it guides them in what they should feel about it.
Exactly. It comes preloaded with how you should feel about the thing.
It comes preloaded with how you should feel about thing, and that way you can show emotion while making sure that you do not step outside the bounds of acceptable emotion that would cause a problem in social circle.
Like, look at people melting down over this Roe v. Wade thing. I mean,
yeah,
they're pre-programmed to have it's meltdown time. Everybody, we're gonna give you meltdown. Everybody, take your meltdown. And so they go out in the street and they have a meltdown.
They go out in the street and they have a meltdown. This is why I wonder if is Klaus Schwab correct? And maybe so. Maybe because everyone focuses on the "you'll own nothing" part.
Uh-huh.
But he also promises that we'll be happy. Right? So maybe they understand what slovenly cattle most people are. And that they can't handle here's the thing. Growing up, they would talk about communism and the Iron Curtain.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, in the Soviet Union, you go to the store, what you have? Only one toothpaste.
Oh, no.
Only one toothpaste. But over here, you got 50 bazillion toothpaste.
And you know what? I hate 15 bazillion toothpaste.
Everyone hates 15 bazillion toothpaste because 15 bazillion toothpaste is stupid. And the only way you can convince people that 15 bazillion toothpaste is good is by employing Debbie to talk about her synergy in an advertising thing. And that justifies every terrorist attack ever happened in the United States. Right? Because when that happens, it's like, yeah, well, I see what you mean. I see what you mean, Abdul. And so all of the choice of stuff, at a certain point, here's the problem. People want to know that they're making the good choice.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. They want to know they're making a good choice. But when you're presented with infinite options for everything in life, it is not possible to know that you're making a good choice because you don't have enough time to research all the nuances of all the toothpastes.
True.
And which one is going to damage your child's IQ by 3 points because it has a minuscule amount of, fluoride or mercury in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at all the papers, does the research show this? And then you're like, oh yeah, look at this paper. Oh no, this one says the opposite. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Back and forth. And you get analysis paralysis, and people just spiral into either one of two camps, not being able to care at all about what they consume, which is how you become a giant fatty that's sick with diabetes, because you're just like, I don't know. Eat the McDonald's every day. Or you get holistic derangement syndrome, where you're talking about how the meat must be not cooked, organic, and it, needs to be consumed with sushi butter or some craziness that you've come up with, right? Where you've analyzed everything to the point where nothing makes sense anymore.
Right.
And so I think maybe Klaus Schwab, and this is a thing that goes on with everything in life. Like if you have infinite choices of houses, people just buy no house because they might make the wrong choice. And people are way more conditioned to avoid making the right choice than to pursue they're way more conditioned to avoid making the wrong choice than they are to pursue making the right choice. And so when given infinite options, people just choose to continue to rent rather than the fear of being locked into a bad deal.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Or with this is why no one gets married anymore or has babies, because the dating apps give you the illusion of infinite choice in partner. So what if you make the wrong one? And you can't possibly know if you're choosing the best one because there's seemingly infinitely many people. Like in the past where you just met, you had your choice of the people in high school. Well, you could sort of sift through that and figure out which one was the best for you. But now, given the choice of everyone on earth, you can't, and people just, and this is why ladies just become spinsters, because there's but maybe I choose the wrong one. And then when if you do ever partner up, then there's always that nagging fear in people of oh, but maybe the perfect person is one click away, and this one's almost perfect. Right? This person is almost perfect, but maybe. And so maybe Klaus Schwab, in his benevolence, in his Jedi robes, sees this problem and is we have to take away choice, but they will be happier. Is this possible? Is this possible?
I feel like you're walking a dark path here, Sumo.
I don't know. I don't know if people, I think you need see, the thing is, and I think he may be correct about this, old Klausy, you need a certain level of maturity to handle prosperity.
Yeah, I mean,
this is
that's
why
true.
lottery winners always have bad problems, or very often, especially if they come from low income backgrounds. And I think the American people as a whole are not handling prosperity well. And I mean, just look around. Their life expectancies are going down as their money goes up.
Yeah.
Abortions go up as money goes up. And and all the bad social statistics, single parenthood, divorce, abuse, domestic abuse, drug usage, they all go up as income go up. So maybe income need to go down. Maybe you need to make poor, then people get better. I always try to see the other side. I'm a people person. I see the other side. Maybe Klaus Schwab is right. Maybe the World Economic Forum is a benevolent force, and we just don't understand their wisdom.
I think you're falling into the, what do you call it? Rational error of the noble poor. Some poor are noble, some poor are ignoble. And it
true.
is not being poor doesn't necessarily make somebody more noble than they were before they were poor.
It doesn't. But I think we have in this country a deficit of character that prevents us from being satisfied with either riches or poverty. Well, this is the same. Is a social credit system bad?
Yes,
I'm asking all these questions for you.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
But in China, right? If you yes, if you criticize the CCP, your score goes down. But also, if you do things like get pregnant out of wedlock.
Right, but all the CCP did was take what functions naturally at a humane societal scale of, you build a reputation for yourself by your actions, and people know each other and know who they can trust and so forth. All they did was try to take that social function that's been blown apart by the scale of modern living and technologically recreate it, but then also use it as a political weapon.
Yeah.
So I'm all for I'm for an organic
solution
social
be?
credit system that doesn't involve the government.
Yeah, but how would you implement it? See, this is the thing.
It's self-implementing.
Maybe CIA is our friend.
No, it's self-implementing. If you live in a community of like 5,000 to 7,000 people, that stuff functions on its own.
Well, that's true. It would
happens.
function on its own, but people are too physically and emotionally damaged to live in small communities now.
Are they? I don't know.
They have. He builds pod and serves bugs because people need pod and bugs.
Maybe some people do. I don't need pot and bugs.
You don't need pod and bugs, but maybe a lot of people do. And that's why he was like, look, not everyone's going to be in the smart city with the pod and the bugs, and that's okay. Maybe Klaus Schwab is an angel from heaven.
I mean, the mega city with the pod and bugs will provide many people exactly what they want, which is constant stimulation and gratification of a very low quality. But if that's all they know, like if they don't know the joys of being
they're raised
parents,
on Marvel movies.
Yeah, if their joy level, if the things that bring them joy are things like the new Marvel movie and not hiking in the woods with their children. Yeah, it's like living in a pod and eating the bugs is perfect for them. So, I mean, I see your point there.
Yeah, like they look around. Maybe Klaus Schwab looks around at the reaction to the Roe v. Wade decision, where people think that some states having abortion laws similar to Norway is the Handmaid's Tale. Right?
Yeah.
Because America has hitherto had the most permissive abortion laws on the planet.
Yeah.
With regards to like the term, the lateness of the term when one can have one, and so forth and so on. And if the new decision is like upheld, then it would roll us back in abortion quote unquote rights to something more like the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And that's the Handmaid's Tale.
Right.
See?
Right.
where women are used as breeding cattle. I haven't actually watched the movie because it looks dumb.
It does look dumb, yeah.
But if Klaus Schwab looks around at people doing that, and he says, you know what, those people would be better in a pod eating bugs, he may be correct, right? He may be a correct person, because I watched a lot of takes about the Roe v. Wade thing. And first of all, there's all the usual lying, which is like suddenly there was like 50,000 Twitter handles where they were like, I was raped and impregnated by my dad when I was 7 or whatever. Right? And I was like, well, that may have happened a few times, but that is certainly not a societal-wide problem. And someone was like, you can't know the lives of these women. And I was like, of course you can know whether paternal incestuous rape babies are a societal-wide problem. Like, that would be something that would be pretty obvious. And it isn't. And so you had a lot of people just like lying to make it. But then you had a lot of women that were not trying to hide the fact that most of what they had done is killed their children for their own economic comfort.
Yeah.
Like, women were like, hey, listen, I wouldn't have got so far with my PhD thesis if I had to take care of a baby. I really saw this several times.
Really? Several times? Like somebody said that unironically?
Unironically. Like, I couldn't have done it, and it would have taken away what time I did have to spend with my daughter that is there. You know,
Man, that's so. I mean, I'm laughing, but that is just devastatingly sad.
it's dark. That's like so demonic. Like I prefer this, PhD to living human being. Is dark on a level that's hard to fathom.
I mean, wow.
But
Like I feel
that
like
is
laughter
where a
is
lot of
my only
people
defense against the horror of it. And I'm just like laughing at this horrible thing.
that's
That's the only thing I can do. In fact,
laughter,
in preparation for the show, I was just trying to do a little quick like fact-finding mission about abortion. And I was just like looking up things like how much does an abortion cost and all sorts of things. And just looking at the pricing and the product descriptions of like, this sort of abortion where they vacuum you out costs $1,200. But this sort of abortion where they pull the baby out whole costs $4,000. I mean, it was so, the horror of it is evergreen to me.
Yeah, and like that sort of behavior is like, well, if you're at a stage where you're making products, like those are listed as like products.
Yeah.
Out of such services. Because America makes everything into a product.
Yeah.
Like I always tell people, like sometimes I'll be like, I'm going to go consume food product. Because everything's a product. Right? Then maybe pod is best.
Yeah.
Maybe pod best. So maybe bugs best for such people that do such things. I don't know. But maybe Klaus Schwab has a point. Well, what you were saying, laughing at it, that's an important thing I want to bring up. Because, well, today's show, we're going to talk about defense against the dark arts.
Oh, good. Highly relevant. And
that is a central theme. Is like, in Harry Potter, the Bogarts. Are you familiar with the Bogarts?
No.
The Bogart was one of the dark art things. It was a shape-shifting thing that is like a shapeshifter of non-being that took on the form of its observer's worst fear.
Okay.
And the way to beat it was to cast a ridiculous spell upon it, where it became ridiculous and you could laugh at it. Right? Which is true. That's so true of how you fight a lot of stuff. And that's why like your defense of like laughing at it is natural and exactly what you should do. But first I want to talk about, we need to talk about Madison Cawthorn and being gay. Of course he is. Every Republican politician is gay. Well, without exception.
Why I've been pulling my hair out watching conservative Republican people, with whom I am very sympathetic and share many philosophical beliefs. I mean, that's my stock. That's my people.
Mm-hmm.
They are blindly refusing to understand Madison Cawthorn. And they're like, oh, he called out the degenerate behavior in Washington, and now they're trying to take him down with this smear campaign.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, on one level, that's true. He did call out the degenerate behavior in Washington with the coke orgies or whatever, which surely goes on with some frequency and worse things in Washington. But and his reason for doing that is not known to us, because who's this guy? Okay, he's 26 years old.
Let's refer to him as Wheels from now on.
Wheels is 26 years old.
Right.
He's never had a real job. He's done absolutely nothing in his life
except get paralyzed.
And even his
And
persona,
what kind of
like,
thing is that to put on your resume?
even his persona, like when he first hit the scene, he would talk about how his military career was interrupted by his injury. And people heard that sort of take and immediately stuck him in the mental model of war injured veteran now getting into politics. Like that's like a little thought form that he just slipped right into, okay? But the man has never been in the military. And people know, like, this is not a secret. People know that he's never been in the military. He had applied for and was rejected from, I think, the Air Force Academy or Naval Academy or something, when he was in a car wreck with one of his buddies and was paralyzed. But he slipped into this idea very easily. He's got, like, fancy haircut, jawline. He's got the military look, and that, for I think probably most people that initially latched onto his career and the idea of him being a politician, that's how they saw them. That's how he was perceived, even if they knew the facts were not exactly that. It didn't even matter. Like, he's just got the look and he's got the thing. But he's never done anything. He's a kid. Like, he's literally 26 years old. If he's had a real job, like an actual job that would prepare one for service in Washington, I don't know what it is. I mean,
he's had lingerie orgies.
Well, I mean, he worked at
the
Chick-fil-A.
best preparation.
He worked at Chick-fil-A for a while, and then he went to college and studied political science. And then he apparently there's some sort of a investment company that he is the only employee of that has never made a profit or never posted any revenue, and owns one $20,000 piece of real estate, and that's it. Like, that's it. I mean, the guy, there's nothing to him. He was created out of thin air to be the next young new right guy, and his purpose is, the only purpose he serves is to say right-wing things, to keep the right flank of the Republican Party attached to voting GOP. That's it. That's his whole purpose. He's even said, like, I've set up my my staff office. This is a communications office. It's not a legislative office. Like, he's not even about doing legislation. He's about messaging to get people with right-wing sensibilities and young people to get them latched onto the Republican Party. That's it. That's his only purpose. And so now, and we've established on this show before, you don't get on a ballot at this level unless you're compromised. Like, period.
Yeah, of course.
Full stop. So take it for, you can take it for granted. Day one, new hot politician comes on the scene, he's compromised. So Madison Cawthorn gets to Washington. For whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe he had a change of heart. Let's best case scenario. Let's be as charitable as we can. He got to Washington. He realized how the place really operates. He's horrified by it. Even though he grew up sort of a vapid party boy lifestyle. Okay, whatever. He's seen the light. He's seen how bad it really is, and he decides he wants to take it on. Okay, he's already compromised. He's already compromised. And now Washington is using its very effective immune system to fight against him. I don't know if his oppositions to Washington are real or if this is some kind of a show. It really doesn't matter, because the way that the system is set up, even if his intentions are good and honest at this point, he can accomplish nothing. Like, he was not put there to accomplish anything except for messaging and marketing for the Republican Party. And so now he's taking a stand against, the coke orgies and whatever. But it turns out he's he's a total degenerate. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, he's trying to pawn this stuff off. Like, okay, to bring you up to speed, for those of you not aware, there's videos coming out in sort of this trickle drop by drop fashion of him. The first round of them were sort of like lots of really gay joking around with his male scheduler, who's like a younger guy, you know, good looking dude. And there's a lot of like grab ass and gay jokes and stuff. And okay, like at that point, this was a few weeks ago. And at that point I was like, I mean, like I get, you know, guys play grab ass and make gay jokes sometimes, but this stuff was over the line. Okay. Like really awkward and weird. And like none of my friends joke like this. And then apparently now there's a video of him in some sort of naked situation. I haven't seen it. Don't really want to. But enough reporting on it. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. If there's video of you naked in bed with another man, like, I'm sorry, you've made some mistakes that disqualify you from public office. I don't know what else to tell you.
What if they're outside freezing to death and they need huddled together for warmth?
I kind of doubt that that's okay. Maybe if it turns out that they were freezing to death and trying to stay warm, even then you can leave your underwear on. I've actually been. I've been in that situation. I've been in a situation where we were so cold that I had to like physically huddle together with another man to not freeze to death. There was no grab ass, and we kept our clothes on too. So I don't think that's what the situation was.
I think if we put Madison Cawthorn and Dan Crenshaw together, we might get a whole person.
Dan Crenshaw is another great example of this guy.
Right, because he's like,
I'm just the reincarnation of John McCain. And he came on the scene, and everybody was like, "Oh, Dan Crenshaw!
Help.
Dan Crenshaw's going to shake up this town, and he's going to fight for real conservative principles." And then before that, it was Paul Ryan. Look at Paul Ryan; he lifts weights. Check out his bicep. He's going to fight for. Have you seen his tax plan? Incredible.
Which was the worst one because Paul Ryan is ridiculous.
Total, and they all end up being total self-seeking slime balls every time. Stop falling for this, guys.
Republicans can't help but worship, just like Democrats can't help but worship a black transsexual. Yeah. They just can't. They just love it. Right? It's just like, if you're a black transsexual and you're fat, they're going to think that you need to do monetary policy. Right? In the same way, Republicans just cannot, if you're like a military person that was injured, that's all the credentials you need.
Yeah.
Despite the fact, I even wonder if Dan Crenshaw even has a bad eye.
It's funny because like they couldn't find any actual war-injured vets to fill this role because I think too many of them realize. If you've been injured in war, you've gained some wisdom about how the world works. You've had some time to reflect on the sort of people that made the decisions that sent you to be injured in war and what that war was really about. You've thought about these things if you're an injured vet, I wager. Which would say
you're probably over there like, we just blew up that family at the wedding.
Yeah.
Am I the baddie?
Yeah. Yeah, you've done some soul searching. And maybe realized, hey, Washington's probably not for me or anybody else of good character. And I'm not gonna go sign up for the team that just had me blown up for no reason. And so they can't get those, and so they got Madison Cawthorn instead. It's such a joke. Stop falling for this right-wing people.
I also don't like Dan Crenshaw because he's the epitome of the Illuminati symbolism of turning a blind eye, like one-eye symbolism.
Yeah. It's like really leaning into that.
Allegedly. I'm not sure that he does. I've only seen the one thing of him showing off his quote-unquote glass eye. Which, first of all, why is he wearing this stupid eye patch? He could just have that glass eye.
It's a theater persona. Person. The patch is like, he looks like a Marvel, he looks like Justice League pirate. Guy.
He's like, hello, I'm Republican gay pirate. And everyone's like, yay, that you can go with gay vampire Peter Thiel. We worship also. But also, like, he could be faking the glass eye. He could have a contacts in there that makes it look
Maybe.
like, I don't know. Maybe he really lost an eye. His face around his eye looks very undamaged to have lost an eye.
Well, it doesn't take much to mess up your eye.
It doesn't. I mean, I agree. But I'm just skeptical of everyone.
I understand the
in politics.
sentiment.
That may not be. It's very possible that someone could have lost an eye in war. It's also very possible that he's a shyster regardless. But it's also possible that his shysterism goes farther than we imagine. Because he lifts up his eye patch and he's supposedly got a Captain America glass eye.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but he and Wheels together. We put them together, and in a naked in a bed, right? And we wrap them up in a flag, in an Israeli flag, right? And then we shake them around, and they talk about degeneracy for about you let it bake for 5 hours, and they would come out as the perfect Republican candidate.
Well, we should. Okay, so now a counterpoint. Let's counterpoint ourselves here about Donald Trump, because he has. Well, okay, I go back and forth on this Roe v. Wade.
Before I forget,
I forget,
everyone just Google military bananas.
What?
Or army bananas.
Is this some kind of trap? I'm going to see something horrible.
No, this is just there's a trend in the military barracks of men doing acts with bananas.
Why would I Google that?
Because I'm just saying that Wheels being gay military and Dan Crenshaw is very
well. Wheels was never in the military.
I know, but that aspect of him would fit right in.
Right.
The army. I think the most, well, all the branches of the military are different, but the army is the most normal, and the Marines are the most. And this is just my outsider perspective. I might be wrong on this. All you Marines out there listening. But you know what goes on in the Marine barracks.
I don't.
Yeah, they do. They've told me things. Marines are an interesting group. But anyway, what were you saying? I still have the image of Dan Crenshaw pretending to be like forming the legs of Madison Cawthorn for him.
Oh no, this is a horrible gay politician transformer.
Yeah,
you're making here. No, I was thinking about the Roe v. Wade and the Trump legacy because think back to Trump's candidacy and presidency. All the people that all the Republican people that that are totally on board for guys like Dan Crenshaw and Paul Ryan, they all hated Trump. They all hated him and fought him the whole way. And, you had this big division between the MAGA people and the establishment Republican people on the right. And it was this bitter fight, and eventually the establishment won and got rid of Trump with the fake election. And now Trump, Trump had a lot of problems personally and with his presidency, but I don't think we can let this moment pass by without, especially if this Roe v. Wade overturn thing is real, and it's brought to you courtesy of the 3 justices that Trump appointed, and it really does end up allowing many states, probably more than half the states in the country, to immediately ban the horrible, evil practice of murdering children, then that will be the greatest accomplishment and the most powerful legacy that a Republican politician has put forward for the good of this country maybe in 100 years. Like I don't know. I don't know how anyone tops that with anything any politician has done for I don't know how long. I mean, that is huge. That is a huge deal to get Roe v. Wade overturned. And now I'm assuming, and there is some doubt. Like I do doubt this, just because it seems like a scam, especially with the early leak. Although I've been informed that the original Roe decision was also leaked early. So, but assuming it's real, then Donald Trump, especially among Christian right people, has just put a win on the board with his judicial appointments that can never be topped by anybody else in Republican politics as far as what actually matters in making this country a better place.
I'd agree with you. I think that nothing will change, though.
You don't think anything will change?
There
are a lot of states with laws on the books. So, okay, yes, California and New York are always going to California and New York, and states like them. But there's a lot of states where abortion is hated, and it's only really practiced by a very small portion of the population. And it will immediately be repealed. In fact, there's some states have laws in the books. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, then that immediately triggers enforcement of an abortion ban already on the books. And there will be states in this country, and this would represent a huge return to Federalist 10th Amendment sort of principles. And it's funny because you have to see, I think people have to see this in as side by side with marijuana legalization, because the states of the country that want marijuana are just legalizing it. Is marijuana illegal under federal law? Yes, it is. Do they care? No, they're asserting their independence as states, and I think that seeing states do everything but outright ban abortion, making it so restrictive that it's almost banned. Even before Roe is overturned, we're seeing a return to Federalist principles because the federal system is totally breaking down. I think that it's
has
a
it been
clown
overturned,
show.
or is that a bunch of? I haven't really I just assumed they're gonna be like but no, but yeah. It's just gonna be a bunch of hype.
There's been a leak. No, they have not said that they've overturned it. What happened is a draft of the majority opinion it has been leaked, and it's authored by Alito, who is definitely very pro-life. And you can get on, if you just look at who's on the court, there's a easy 5-4 there, even without Roberts. So if Roe came up, if Roe was on the chopping block, it's entirely possible, just based on who's on the court right now, that it would be overturned. Like Dred Scott was overturned. Like a lot of established legal precedents in the history of the country were later overturned because they were terrible law. Roe is a terrible judgment, and has been a curse on this country ever since it was decided, and it's needed to be overturned ever since. It's crap legal theory. It's absolute garbage legal theory. Always has been. But people gonna worship Molech, and so they've fought for it this entire time. And if it is really overturned, and I'm not 100% convinced it will be, this may be a big game. But I can't, because of what is possible for this country, I can't help but be excited about it. And all the people, all the Christian people that turn their nose up at Trump are going to have to go look in the mirror over this and figure out, like, how did they get it so wrong that they would not see when a guy came in and was aggressively appointing lots of pro-life judges to the court and making that a central piece of his work in his first term, how they could not be turned in their opinion. I understand not liking him at the beginning. That's fine. But the man did some great work here. If this goes through, I keep qualifying it because it does need the qualification if this is real.
Yeah, I think all we have now is a supposed leaked memo.
Well, it's a draft opinion that was leaked by one of the clerks. So what they do is after a vote has occurred, the opinion needs to be written. And so when the vote is announced, there is also published by the court a paper explaining why they decided the way they did, and it's written. Sure. It's written by the winning team or the winning judges, and they'll pick one of the guys that voted for in this case, overturn. They'll pick somebody to write the opinion, and then they'll all share the draft and they'll comment on it. And it's like a collaborative process to write this thing because this paper itself becomes part of the body of legal precedent of the Supreme Court. So other cases will then can then refer to this document in making judgments and so forth. So it's the precedent, the legal system of establishing precedent. All this is very important. So everybody on the court gets a case. All their clerks, see they work on the document with the justices, and this thing is being prepared to be released when they announce the vote. Because it will, and it's a serious business because it's going to affect the way future cases are decided and so forth. And this is supposed to be very secret, and these leaks never happen. Apparently, it hasn't happened since the Roe decision, since that was leaked, if I'm correctly informed on that point. But the idea that this was leaked, I presume to stir up a bunch of hay and maybe intimidate the justices into changing their vote. Or something. I don't know what the motivation of the leaker was. But that's what's going on. That's the deal with this document. So it is an important document, and it's a majority opinion. So it does indicate, and they've confirmed, the Supreme Court has said, yes, this is real. Like, this isn't faked. So it's reasonable to assume that they have voted. Unless Alito just wrote this thing for fun and shared it with the rest of the court, even though they hadn't voted, which doesn't seem a realistic explanation for the existence of it. So I think the assumption one can safely make is that they have voted 5-4 to overturn Roe, and they're in the process of writing the opinion before they announce it. And then that's what was leaked.
Maybe. I tend to, I don't know. I tend to think this will be a big show and they'll pull the rug out at the last minute. Like, oh no, it didn't happen. That's my presumption, but maybe it'll be a thing.
I understand that as a strong possibility. I think you're correct to be skeptical.
Because who would I just go through the justices and who would vote against it? But
I would rather hope for this thing to be real now because of what it would mean, and be disappointed later than not be hopeful now.
You got Kavanaugh, right?
Yeah.
He pretended to be his own rape accuser, and is Catholic, so he's not gonna vote against abortion.
I'm not convinced on the whole Kavanaugh is what's that babe's name?
No one remembers because she vanished off the face of the earth at the moment.
I'm not convinced of that, but okay. I think that
we got Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah.
Also Catholic, not going to vote against abortion.
She's militantly pro-life. Yeah.
Yeah, but she ain't going to do anything about it.
You don't think? Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I will be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
But
well, here's the thing. It's like if this is real, I will see this as God graciously blessing our country with something that we don't deserve, which is the overturn of abortion.
Well, I would agree with you. I'm just waiting on the shoe to drop and be like, oh no, that was a draft of if we had voted that way, but then we didn't, and then
right. Well, now that
happens so often.
Now it's true that the court is now going to be pressured immensely to not do this from powerful people all over the political machine. They're going to be under incredible pressure. They're going to get death threats. I would not be surprised if one of them were assassinated or something. I mean, this is to take away what is essentially the blood ritual of the American human sacrifice cult religion, or to interrupt it in any way, is like people are freaking out about this because this is literally part of their religion. That's how closely they hold to how much they love abortion. It's sick. It's dark. It is the darkest thing. Like when you really consider what our country does and how it is enshrined as like this sacred thing that we do here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the longer you look at it, the worse it gets. I mean, go look at a picture of a dead baby that's the result of an abortion, late term abortion. Like you can't. It's the most horrible thing. And so when people, might think you or I are just way too cynical about America. I mean, come on, they can't all be fake. You really expect me to believe that, they're just lying about being conservatives? Yes, I do, because Planned Parenthood was set up by the Bush family. Okay, Republicans. That's where and this abortion thing is so morally central to the future of our country that its importance cannot be overstated. And so that's why I usually don't, with stuff like this happens, I usually don't get as so worked up about it. But the reason I'm so worked up about this is because of the intense metaphysical, moral weight of this whole thing. So, thus ends my.
Yeah, maybe. I hope it does. I just think I just am waiting. They'll be like, now.
Yeah, I know, buddy.
Which is what it is. See, I'm coughing. Do you see?
I see. You sound terrible. What's wrong with you?
I'm fine.
You got the allergies?
I got.
You got bird flu?
I probably have.
Hey, does anybody out there know anyone personally that has had their farm affected by bird flu? I ask because I'm not convinced it's real.
Yeah, I don't think it's real. I think also the cullings are often not real. I think they just talk about them.
Oh, you think the cullings are fake?
Yeah, I think they just print stuff up. Like, this is the thing. Like, I think you just print up a memo. Like a leaked... Like, this is my problem. All you have to do is seed the idea into the public, and it becomes an issue. Which is what I suspect maybe have happened with this supposed leak. Like when they confirm, it's like, yeah, that's from us. I haven't looked into it, but oftentimes what that means is that came from our office.
Well, I would expect anytime like a food independence movement takes root, that government / big ag, which are, two sides of the same coin, they're inseparably interconnected, would do anything to try to squash it. And so at a time when people are like raising, gardening is increasing in popularity. People are keeping chickens in like small dacha format. Agriculture is taking off all over the country. I would fully expect them to do anything they could do to discourage that. And so either pretending there's a bird flu rampaging through the country to make people afraid to buy chickens, because there has been the sale of chicks and chickens and all that stuff has been canceled in many parts of the country. I know that Tractor Supply or Southern States or something, one of these little hardware stores that usually carries baby chicks in the spring, they've stopped selling them because of the bird flu. So it is having that effect, and I would just expect that sort of reaction from those parties. I would expect that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'd expect that sort of thing too. But I think that it's all just an illusion.
Okay.
Like the flu is and the culling due to the flu.
Right. You think it's all?
It's just
if anybody knows, like firsthand, verifiable, either somebody whose flock has been culled because of bird flu or somebody whose birds have gotten bird flu, I would like to hear your story, because I can't find a single story on this that I can actually verify.
Right. Well, this is why I want today's show, Defense Against the Dark Arts, because I'm basically Dumbledore, right?
Yeah.
I think
I've always thought of you that way.
I'm basically Dumbledore. And our people, our listeners are like kids in Hufflepuff, you know? Or I think there's very few of our people in Ravenclaw.
Nah. It's not really
our
type.
Most of our listeners are Hufflepuff, and there's a few Slytherins.
What about Gryffindor? Isn't that one?
Yeah, good job. You knew a pop culture reference.
Every once in a while, I get one.
That was good.
Thank you.
There's a few in Gryffindor, but we're mostly Hufflepuff people.
Mm-hmm.
And Hufflepuff people need to know this is the problem. Republicans are Hufflepuffers. They tend to accept things at face value.
Well, Madison Cawthorn is apparently. He's huffing puffles.
Yeah, he's a Hufflepuffer. They're all Hufflepuffers. And Republicans tend to accept things at face value and think people are being honest, and they're like, woo, and then like the Slytherin people are just lying all the time. And so the Hufflepuff crowd needs Defense Against the Dark Arts more than anybody because they're so trusting. And so like one of the ways that the system operates is to, well, there's like 3 or 4 basic moves. One is to just ruin things and get people to pretend it's still good. Like, for instance, Star Wars. Right? Or anything that was good, you have to make it bad, and then people continue out of nostalgia for the thing, like it, and then they begin to warp their aesthetic. That's one move that's classic. Anything that was good, you make progressively horrible, but people still remain attached to it. And then you warp that person thereby, right? But another move that's less known and recognized is the creating conflict where there is none. Like just poof, out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that exists to create a good example. And this is, some people on our side, quote unquote, are going to be upset with me for saying this. But like the don't say gay bill in Florida, so called,
mm-hmm.
right? Is, I think, is just a mirage to create conflict where there was none. So like, is it true that there are teachers that if you go to public school in America, there's a bunch of teachers just waiting to talk to your first grader about masturbation?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think there's very few. There are some, but I think it's a very small problem. And I think if you go to most schools in America, what you will find is a teacher there doing ABCs and the normal stuff. And what they do is they find 1 or 2 people where this is an issue, and they blow it up to a gigantic proportion, make people react against that, right? And then that, paradoxically, normalizes the position you're fighting against.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is it's yin and yang stuff. It's like Heraclitus said, all things come into being through the union of opposites. So if you want something to happen and it's not, what can you do is you can create its opposite, and then that will birth it into existence. And so no one, like, if Republicans hadn't what I think fallen for this bait of freaking out about this, then there would be no national conversation about whether or not first graders should talk about masturbation or whatever, and then it just wouldn't happen. But now you've created this class of people who feel the need to take up that position and who have begun to think about it as maybe a normal thing that could happen, whereas that wouldn't have happened beforehand. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So okay, I'll take your point for granted here for a second, and then I'll ask. So okay, the solution isn't to have a big movement against it or create a big anti movement. Then what is? So there is a real problem of teachers doing this, and yeah, most teachers don't.
But how big is the problem?
It's big enough. It's like is everybody in the corporation a flaming blue hair cat lady? No, but the HR manager is a flaming blue hair cat lady, and over time, her influence will bring more and more flaming blue hair cat ladies into the company, right? And in the same way, I think what's going on in most public schools is the teachers might not be, in all cases, there might be one or two, but at the county school board curricula office, there is somebody who's selecting the sex ed curriculum that's created by some not-for-profit curriculum company that makes a bunch of videos, and maybe two of their videos and their curriculum are shared in health class, and they're a little more tame, but the handouts and the materials that go along with this packaged curriculum that these schools buy also comes with links and websites and referrals to other material from the company that the kids can then go look at their own time, and they're being and then the videos from that are like psycho, really weird, like telling kids, oh yeah, it's great to look at porn, all this weird stuff, like young kids. And what I just described, that is really the case in Chicago school district, is that these kids are given by their health teacher, and the health teacher may not even know what else is available from this company, but they're introducing to these children some of this material that's all full on like gender transition propaganda, convincing kids, but at the same time, there are teachers out there that see a kid who's picked on, and they say, "Oh, that kid must be trans." I'll encourage this kid. I'll say, "Oh, I know, sweetie. I'm sorry you're getting picked on. What if you just really need to be yourself? A lot of kids are born in the wrong body or whatever, and then they take that opportunity to affect that child, and it's usually like the weird kids that get picked on a lot, that get targeted for this. So there are people doing this. They write about it on Reddit all the time. There are Reddit boards by these teachers that do that. So there's the problem. I will grant to you that it's probably not a ton of people, but I would say that most urban schools have a few of teachers like this in them. Maybe not so much out in the suburbs or the exurbs out in the country. But so then what if the solution isn't the Florida solution? How does one approach this problem?
Well, first of all, I would say there are no gay people in San Francisco. So I've been there several times. Uh-huh. I was just there again, I've been there for whatever reason. Out of all the states besides the one I live in, I'm always called back to California. Uh-huh. I end up going there the most. So, and one thing I took care to note was how many people in San Francisco are into Current Thing, which when I was there was Ukraine. Yeah. And the answer was 0.
That is very interesting.
There were no Ukrainian flags. There were no any of that. Now I didn't drive around the entire Bay Area. I'm sure I could find some, right? But no one had any visible displays of concern about Current Thing. No one talked about Current Thing. I saw maybe one rainbow flag while I was there. Okay. And you will see far more displays you will see more cars with bumper stickers of an equal sign or a rainbow flag in the Deep South than you will in San Francisco. And that's objectively true, percentage-wise.
That is so wild to me. I mean, I believe you.
But here's the thing. Because those people feel the need to become the opposite. So in a very conservative culture, the people, it must manifest its opposite. Right? And so like people feel more need to express whatever outside the norm things they feel to individuate themselves from the culture. Right?
Okay.
And so it is in some paradoxical way the culture war itself which validates the other side. Right? And so when one does not have it, this is why like all of the yuppies in the America and all of the upper class, they don't have any of this stuff. They're just like, yeah, whatever. But if you go to like New England and you go to the upper class areas of, I don't know, Long Island or wherever, they're all normal married families with children that are doing normal stuff. Right? But because there is no culture war there. And so my thesis here is that it is engaging in the culture war itself is part of the spell that creates the problem. That's part of the dark arts, is getting people. It's just like Ukraine. No one should care about Ukraine at all.
Yeah.
And no one did until it became like, are you pro-Ukraine or anti-Ukraine? Those are your two positions. And people were like, well, they just fall into two separate states. It's like, boop, boop, boop. Which one do you want to be in? And then out of nowhere, just a manifested out of nowhere, you have a conflict.
But in that discussion, isn't Ukraine sort of a straw man in this case because it's so far away? It's easy to see how pointless it is to get upset about it.
Well, that's true. Okay.
Whereas people trying to raise their kids,
right? But there are no Nazis in America until you complain about them, and they become Nazis in America. Is that so? Like that's the left wing version of getting stuck in this trap. Like they were all like, "There's Nazis." Like you go around, there is not a problem of Nazis in America, but they all think it's this huge problem, and then that begins to create that very thing which they had feared.
So then are you saying that? I feel like you're making a trap for yourself, saying that the solution to rising degeneracy in America is to don't be so upright.
No, it's to do nothing. Engaging in the that's what the Wu Wei principle of politics is, that if you it can only exist if it has something to push against.
Okay.
Right? And so if you get up there and are like, because why is the abortion, let's take the abortion thing for a minute. Why do they feel, what is their germ in their head for why they need to do it? It's because Republicans want to control our bodies. Like they need the opposition. If that would just, that's what they're standing on. And imagine if that just fell away. They'd have nothing to stand on. I know that seems a bit weird.
Right, but there would also be abortion, though.
But would there be as much?
I don't know.
Because there's some now, right? And what if no one... What if... Like, because there's not... The thing is, there's not a lot of it. I mean, there is a lot of it. But it's also like... I mean, it's like the Nazi issue. It's like the Ukraine issue. It's like the trans issue. Like very, very, very few people in America are trans. And then you blow that up into this huge thing, right? And then you freak out about it. And then people fight against it. And then the other people, feeling the need to defend those people, fight for it. And then it becomes a thing that grows exponentially. It becomes a giant in the minds of everyone and pulls more people into it by the fact that people fought against it. And so this is what I mean. I think this is one of the spells of the dark arts thing, is to create the conflict out of nothing, which creates the thing that you're fighting against.
Right. So, I mean, I think you're right in that whatever that the forces of darkness want to see happen, they will create a movement and an identity around it to make it appealing for people that feel to latch onto for people that feel excluded from society in some way, or that have some other sort of grief or grievance or something they can't let go of or whatever. You know what I mean? Like race hustlers do this. And that's it's similar. Like the racism, anti-racism thing is similar to the abortion thing, because people get caught up in this thing for like political reasons, and it ends up destroying them in both cases. I mean, the women that have had abortions, it's not pretty. And also, you know, the racism thing is a game that the more you play, the harder you lose. So I mean, I see your point there, but at the same time, did laws banning abortions in certain states necessarily create more abortions? Like, does that make it wrong to pass the law to ban abortion?
Right, and I don't know about that. You know, like I don't know the overall outcome, but it's sort of like how the Q movement enabled the steal to happen, because they made the opposition to the steal look ridiculous. Right. Yeah. And no one wanted to associate with the absurdity. They did the Bogart move to you, which is the thing that was opposing them. They made look ridiculous. And then no one that was a serious person wanted to be associated with the insanity of people screaming about Hillary Clinton and Gitmo in a tunnel. Yeah. In a secret military tribunal. And so they were tended to write off any such things as just that. And then bada bing, bada boom, like it becomes so easy to happen. Right. Just like Pizzagate, in a sense, became a cover for actual pedophiles, because it made, though there was reality to it, and I've talked about this before, there's like, they really use these symbols and stuff. The way that the people that cared about it spiraled into craziness over it, made it seem as though the whole idea of secret pedophilia cults is absurd and therefore protected it.
But is a Florida law which basically says we're not going to allow the school system at certain young ages to introduce sexual topics to the children in the classroom. Right. Which to me sounds very reasonable. And, it is a reasonable law. It's not like that in itself is not casus belli of a culture war. That's just a society at a certain scale deciding how it wants to run its school system. Now, I don't think government schools should exist, but for the sake of the argument, we'll accept them here. Somebody has to make that decision, because it shouldn't just be the teacher deciding at what point a kid gets told about sodomy and in what context and what they are told about sodomy. Like that, right. I don't think that's an unreasonable culture war thing for the state to say, you know what, we should not be involved in this at all. This is parents' jurisdiction, so we're just going to take ourselves off the table for consideration in this matter, and parents can deal with that themselves. That, I don't feel like that's starting a war at all. That's just something that should be. But of course, the left, the sodomites reacted to this in such a hysterical way. Not even all, and it's funny because I've seen a lot of gay guys on Twitter saying, "Yeah, I don't have a problem with this Florida law. Like, kids shouldn't be subjected to this." Like good old fashioned, like white bread gay men.
Yeah, the good old fashioned trad gays.
Yeah.
Which is the conservative, Milo and everybody. Right. It's the trad gays. Well, yeah, I think you're right. Like, it's a reasonable thing. It's a reasonable, like, the law is fine. and it shouldn't be a casus belli, but it was.
But you're saying for whatever reason, it
Like,
will
it will
result
be because-
in more kids being introduced to degeneracy, even though it's not the wrong move.
even though like on paper it's fine, was it? It'd be like if I let's say I was the governor of I don't know, Minnesota. Let's pretend I'm the governor of Minnesota, and I introduce a bill that says this bill makes it illegal for people to rip the heads off dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And I do this because Muslims like to rip the head off dogs.
Okay.
In their slaughtering of in their halal slaughtering. Right?
Okay.
Which there are some weird things that happen in halal slaughtering practices.
I don't think they rip the heads off dogs though, but
they don't.
Yeah.
But let's say that I made that law. Okay. All right. So on paper, almost everyone agrees that you should not rip the heads off dogs while they're alive. Right. Everyone would be like, yeah. But I'm also that problem wasn't happening. Right. And then by creating that law, I'm framing it as this is something that happens and that Muslims do and it's part of their culture, and then other people would feel the need to then jump in and defend. And now we have a political wing that has as part of its umbrella ripping the heads off dogs.
I mean, I see what you're saying, and there are outcomes that support your theory.
Right.
But at the same time, I think we're ending up in a weird place where we're blaming God for Eve eating the apple.
Well, I don't see. I think it's this feeling. I'm not sure if the feeling that we need to, because if you look at all of the politics that's gone on and all the insanity, like COVID and Ukraine and the trans stuff, all of it is premised on a basic assumption of we need to do something.
Right. Yeah.
We need to do something.
Sure. And
what if you just didn't do anything? Like, are we going around just making a mess of stuff by trying to fix it all?
Well, maybe we need some drastic repairs to our rubric of how we decide what things we can fix and by what authorities do we fix them.
Yes,
like there should have there should have never been a Supreme Court ruling about abortion, because that's a 10th Amendment issue. Just a straight reading of the Constitution, that sort of thing is a 10th Amendment issue and should be governed by the states. Always should have been. And that sort of thing can be decided at the state level. And it didn't become this crazy thing until we try to make it national. Same thing with lots of things you could put into that. And then the federalist system, which I think is very clever and a very practical way of dealing with human behavior, and which we should be using for things like this. I forgot what I was going to say, but I feel like we're trying to, as a society, we're trying to solve things using the wrong tools, and every solution to every problem has got to be the federal government or whatever the highest level of government power we can use. That's got to be the solution. And maybe that assumption is what's leading to a lot of the things you're describing.
Yeah, but I'm positing maybe it's the solution that we need to have solutions at all. Like, because nothing ever changes. This is why I'm skeptical of the Rose stuff. Like, people have been freaking out about political thing after political thing after political thing my entire life, and yet everything is basically the same. Like there's no, if anything, you have more gun rights now than you did in the past.
Right.
Right. And people are freaked out that they're going to lose their, like the left's attempts to frame it as like right-wing people are going to shoot up everything has made it so that now you can print a gun from your home in a computer. Right? Because people have freaked out about that so much that it creates the opposite, which arguably becomes a bit of a like problem if there's like, you know, there's when people are walking around the suburbs in their tactical gear, it does make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not necessary, but the reaction against the guns is what creates that polar opposite. And so what appears to me to happen is that it is almost nothing ever actually changes in on the ground level, and but except that people begin to hate each other for perceived differences over manufactured conflicts.
Yeah, I mean, I think I largely agree with you.
Right, nothing ever like there's not like nothing ever. It's always the same. You know, it's like my great grandmother. She was a Dixiecrat, right?
Right.
For a time. And then she went and she stopped voting at some point in her life, and her children were like, "Why don't you go vote anymore?" And she at some point said something to the effect of, which I think is a common saying most of them picked up on, which is, well, it doesn't matter who's in the White House, potatoes cost the same. Right? And that's true. Like nothing on the ground level ever changes. It's just people could always be gay. They just all decided that they want, like, regardless of the law, you know, and they decided that they wanted to a lot more in the 80s.
Yeah.
And now they're deciding they want to, and
well, it went from
what's happening.
It went from some dudes
ahead.
like, you know, just doing gay stuff because that's what they want to do for whatever reason, to we're going to change the character of our society. To put this thing in the center of it. So that did change. Like the character of American society during the, I don't know, 60s and 70s, 80s changed from being non-sodomitic to sodomitic explicitly. That did change.
It did.
So
but
some, like, many things don't change, but some things do. And we've reflected on this show before about, you know, the difference in interracial relations in this country from when we were young to now. That has objectively changed for the worst. So, I mean, I see your point. Like the price of potatoes is always the same, but actually, the price of potatoes is going up. It's going up now.
Well, that's true.
So
okay.
I feel like we have to qualify this theory. Like,
so in the 40s and 50s, in World War II, a lot of men had gay sex on aircraft carriers.
Sure.
Tons of them.
Yeah.
And the solution that the culture had to not making that a thing was to ignore it.
Okay.
Right? And but when people decided to stop ignoring it is when it became an issue in its own right.
Right. So we got sort of trapped in a Hegelian dialectical conflict.
Yeah, that's yes, that's a great way of putting it. Is the Hegelian dialectical trap always produces both extremes. And I think that is often the point of these conflicts. Like I think, like, maybe even this leak of this Supreme Court letter, whether or not it turns out that that's what happens, it creates this thing where, like, okay, but now we got to go. And what will happen is you'll have two opposing opposites set up where people will ban abortion, which is good, but then the other states will go to the extreme and, like, allow it all the time forever. And so the net effect is the same or worse. Like they'll allow it up after birth abortion, just because
Right.
of how awful that other side is, and how much. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, like they're gonna kill a newborn baby to get back at fundamentalist
Right.
religious people. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think I can cut the knot here.
Yeah, cut the Gordian knot.
We're gonna cut the knot. Okay, so I think that the phenomena that you're describing happens in proportion to the scale at which the conflict is undertaken. So, and by scale I mean number of people involved or level of government. So, if a small group of people, a community, know each other, and they have a problem and they seek to address it at a community or a family level, there's a greater chance of it being resolved without a Hegelian dialectical trap exploding and both sides spiraling into extremer and further extreme opposites. And then the higher up you go in the scale, the societal scale of conflict, the more likely and it will then necessarily it will devolve into the Hegelian trap. So this I think connects well with things that we've discussed on the show many times about things need to be in their right scale.
Yeah, it's all a problem of scale.
And there's a right scale for everything, and that includes cultural conflict or culture creation or how would I put it? Enforcement of morality or holiness, not enforcement, maintenance or encouragement. So like if you have a friend that is, caught up in a degenerate lifestyle, and you go to him and you say, listen, man, you're my brother. I love you. Please stop this thing. You're hurting yourself and your family. How can I help you? Like, that's something that can only be done at a certain scale, either like a one-on-one relationship or maybe like a handful of people. That's the only way that's ever going to be effective. If you try to scale that up to a local government, to where, like, say, a coalition of concerned people go down to the gay bar or whatever and say, guys, this lifestyle is destructive, like, that will immediately turn into a riot. You can't scale that up. And I think a lot of our problems as a society, even when there's a just cause, like there's a just cause for the state of Florida to say teachers should not be teaching kids about sodomy in the first grade.
Correct. Yes.
But because the way we conduct education and the way we decide things like that is so far out of scale, they immediately collapse into the Hegelian trap that you've described. And I think the solution is to handle things at their right scale. And that's one of the core fundamental problems with modern living, is that things are way out of scale in like 100 different dimensions.
Yeah, Chesterton talked about that. He said the correct government is when we have a politician close enough you can kick him.
See, I love that. And that's so...
Yeah.
I know it's like a cute and folksy little saying, but there is so much wisdom. There is so much wisdom in that.
Yeah, because things blossom. The scale... This is the same reason that Google doesn't work anymore.
Oh, a good example.
Right, because the scale got... Because once everyone started to try to optimize their thing for Google, it broke the Google. Like, this is why a recipe... You look up a recipe and there's like 10,000 words before the recipe. Yeah. And that's because the search engine, for whatever reason, because I guess nerds don't understand how people think. And they were like, the algorithm is like, hey, you know what? How do we judge if something is good information or not? Well, one of the ways is if there's a lot of words on the page, which is what the search engine does when it ranks stuff. It's like, well, how many words did they write? We'll rank that a little higher. So if you just had a website that was just the recipe and the instructions, that one is like, it's no good. You need 10,000 words explaining like how you felt on the beach when you ate it before you give the thing. And so what has happened is it's like this feedback loop where technology defeats itself. It's called Goodhart's Law. Have you heard of this?
No.
Goodhart's Law is where it can be summed up as let's see, it's how do they say it? Goodhart's Law is when anything becomes, every measure that becomes a target becomes a bad measure.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is so true because of this scale. Like, so people are like, listen, how do we want the economy to be good, right? How do you tell if the economy's good? GDP.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes the target.
And then everybody optimizes for GDP.
For GDP, which in a way that it dissociates from the actual prosperity of the people.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like if you made a measure and you were going to judge people on how many, you're like, we need to have a nail manufacturing company, right? And we're making nails. Okay, well, let's judge which employee is the best at making nails. And so I'll have a measure and I'll rank each one on the number of nails made. And then you get a guy, he's like, well, great. Eventually he optimizes for that and he makes thousands of tiny useless nails. They're like very small. He used all his metal and he made a bunch. They're like, well, that's not good. We can't use these nails. But the number went up,
yeah.
So I was the best.
Right.
Or you could do the opposite, say, well, we'll do it by the weight of the nails made. And then you get one guy that made like one gigantic heavy nail. Like, well, see, my nail's the heaviest. So, and when people when you have these targets, as soon as a measure becomes a target you're judging people by, it ceases to be a good measure for the thing that you're trying to measure, which is this is why so much stuff is fake. And I think this gets back to like, because on the societal scale, we like try to measure things like, well, how good is education and whatever. And you look at test scores and then rapidly test scores dissociate from anything involving competency. And you just are focusing on teaching the test.
Right. That's how you get, I mean, there was that big scandal in Atlanta about the teachers basically changing the answers on the test scores.
Yeah, because they're incentivized to do that. This is why this is one of the many reasons nothing is real. But that traps you in this, like when you're looking at the target of like how many people, I think that's what's happening with this all of what we talked about, this Hegelian dialectic trap too, because you get these measures and then people are trying to argue about them and fight about them, like how many abortions are there happening, right? And I think when you begin to make that I'm not sure what to say here. I think when you begin to look at these measures, you begin to get a dissociated view of what's actually happening. And so it creates this illusion that there's a lot more trans ideology in education, or Nazi educate stuff like white supremacy than there actually is. And then that by doing that, people begin to optimize for that thing.
Yeah.
And so then you get people beginning to optimize for Nazism, because Nazism is a thing that people are judging by and measuring things by. And so it's this feedback loop problem that I'm not quite sure how to resolve, except by saying, just don't care about it. And stop trying. If you stop trying to save the world, maybe you will.
Well, I think there's a good analog for this if we go back to the scaling thing, is like every material has a resonant frequency that will cause it to, vibrate in a resonant way or whatever. And each material is different, and I think in the same way, like people, for example, just politics in general. I mean, whatever method you want to use, it's probably the resonant frequency of human politics is probably about 5,000 to 7,000 people.
Yeah.
And anything under that can be handled by simpler means, and anything over that, the political structure just gets more and more deranged and unhealthy for the people living under it.
Yeah, because you can't, because the solution to like Goddard's problem, which is what people continue to try to do, is to make more and more metrics.
Yeah.
And so you say, well, like with the nail thing, like, well, we were judging by number of nails. Okay, but let's also say for number of nails and the weight of the nails. And then we'll get more. But all that happens is the more metrics you put on it, then you begin to judge success by the metrics of the metrics, right? And it becomes this, it's just this ever blooming problem of bureaucracy, which disassociates from actual results.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's
that's how you get fake jobs.
Yeah, that's how you get and that's how these levels of fakery can, one of the ways, because everyone's measuring something that's measuring something that's measuring something that's purported to be a target of the real thing, but that has so many levels from long since being anything. Like the GDP doesn't mean anything now.
Yeah,
it's
really
a worthless measure.
Yeah,
because people tried to hit it. And you see this all the time, like in sports. Okay. Once upon a time, people tried to judge how good an archer was at hunting by whether or not they could hit a target.
Mm-hmm.
And have a contest. And then people just optimized and optimized and optimized archery for hitting this target. And they've got like laser sights and this other stuff. And these like super engineered arrows and this and all this stuff, which no longer really could even take down an animal. And it's just optimized to hit the thing.
Yeah.
Right? And like fencing. None of the people in sport fencing would last a second in an actual like Renaissance era sword duel. Because the sword they're using is a flimsy radio antenna,
mm-hmm.
and they're just jumping around trying to tag each other. But because the metric became to touch the other person, people optimized for that rather than like what it was actually supposed to be. Like the touch was supposed to be a metric for would I have killed you?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so anytime you have anytime you set up this is I think maybe the answer is to just stop trying. That may be the answer. Like, is the tree trying or is it just doing its thing? And maybe the actual satanic thing in all of us is the desire to control it all and make sure that it all goes right and according to plan. And by doing that, by trying to control it all, we actually mess it all up. I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, I think that there's something there that we have to fuse with the fact that sometimes things happen to us, and by our station in life, we have a duty to react to them in some way. And there's no way, and there's no way around it.
On the humans, on our scale,
right?
But like, I can't fix the hole in the ozone layer.
No, yeah,
and it turns out I didn't need to anyway.
That's out of scale. That's out of scale.
Right, and it was fake. And like, I can't save the children in Lesbio land from being told, like, you know, like I don't, but you can worry about the children in your own life.
I mean, this is how we got Team America World Police here. That thinks, oh, you know, there's something happening in Ukraine. Therefore, necessarily, America must do something.
Yeah, we're going around the world trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And making a giant mess.
We never fix it. Look at Libya. Look at Afghanistan. Look at Iraq. We can't fix any of these places because we're thinking out of scale with what's the situation. If somebody invaded America, yeah, we should address that problem. That problem is in our scale, as a country. But we're
they can have
we're not
Florida.
a global global empires don't last because they're out of scale.
Yeah. Right.
They never last. They blow themselves up every time by doing the stuff like we're doing right now in Ukraine because they're fundamentally out of their scale.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've done some really good philosophical work here today.
We have. So I think the takeaway is everyone stop trying. You're just making things worse.
Uh-huh.
And be yourself. I don't know.
I mean that connects with the last episode, especially with your interview with Godward, which I really enjoyed, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. But like all this stuff, like the last black man in San Francisco or whatever, which was a Wired article recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not even what it's just so they're trying to fix gentrification and they're like there's black people. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's another problem that's out of scale. It's like if it's you've either got gentrification when the white people move in, or you've got white flight when they move out. Like, stop worrying about where white people live.
Stop worrying about anything.
That problem is out of scale for you.
Give no thought for the morrow. What are you doing? You're worrying about all this stuff you can't, and that itself makes it worse.
Well, so even there's a paradox. It's like give no thought for the morrow, but also the man who does not provide for his own family is worse than an unbeliever. You know, it's like the Bible says both things. And how do you differentiate between the two?
Well, the thing is, like, do you is worrying about the morrow entailed in providing thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
you're
out of when you're worrying about tomorrow, you might in a sinful way. That means you're temporarily out of scale with the numbers of problems you're trying to solve at once.
Right. You only solve the problems that are right in front of you today.
There we go. We've just like synthesized all this beautifully.
Yeah, you just the problems right in front of you today, which I think is the message of Jordan Peterson, sadly. We circled back around to him. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm sure soon I'll be on benzos.
No, don't do benzos.
In a Russian hospital.
No. Don't do it.
In a Russian hospital while, I don't know, I'm in a coma. Which is what happens when you clean your room too much. Because you're just trying too hard. I don't know. I'm gonna see if I can sing a song though later and send it to you.
Okay, I'll pop it in there in post.
Yeah.
Just make sure it's about 15 minutes long.
Let's see if Roe v. Wade is actually overturned. My suspicion, and by the time this comes out, will probably be confirmed or not. Mm-hmm. You know, my suspicion right now, which may be proven wrong by the time this comes out, is that they'll say, that was just a little leak thing.
You think they're going to walk it back? Okay.
I think they'll walk it back. I may be pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
We'll see.
Your prediction is noted on your permanent record.
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's on my NFT ledger.
You know, something I like to do with some of my friends is when they make predictions, I take a screenshot of their text and I put it in their permanent record, which is a file on my computer. And they know I do this. You know, it's a joke. Mm-hmm. But one of them said, well, where's your permanent record? I said, dude, I'm a podcaster.
That's right.
That's right.
I mean, like, my part is me being wrong about so many things.
Yeah.
Just over and over again.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
Just, you know, and that's because you can't know the future. And like and all the fears that you have about the future are often not valid. Mm-hmm. Except that you manifest them by worrying about them. You see? Like if you're worried that you're gonna get fired and you begin to act all weird.
Yeah, you might get fired. You really should just be working hard. Yeah.
Or just, again, not doing anything, which is how people get by in most offices. To bring it back full circle to the boring talk.
Yeah.
People don't do anything.
Oh, man.
And they just sit around talking about, I mean, they used to talk about Game of Thrones. I don't know what they talk about now. I guess trans lives in Ukraine or something. Whatever it is. Who knows?
up here, we just had something go right over the top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast that went right over the top of us.